So the Demartini Method is designed to help you balance your perceptions, own what you see in others, and allow you to not have the world on the outside run you, but you run you. If you work in the service industry as a coach, consultant, a mentor, somebody that's involved in assisting other people in maximizing potential or achieving things or possibly helping in the health industry even, there's some ideas I'd like to share with you today that's going to help you in doing so. I've been working in that area, you might say, clinically for about 46 years, and I've been teaching for 52 years almost. So I've been involved in that service industry for quite a while, and I've been developing methodologies and tools that can assist people in maximizing their own as well as other people's fulfillment in life or achievements in life. So I'd like to share with you some of those tools, some of those principles that I found to be very powerful. First of all, if you're a coach or consultant or somebody, that you will find that as you're working with somebody, and let's say that you're starting it with a client that's working in the business, but you might find out that the issues that they have deal with conflict between people inside the company or between departments. Or they may have conflict with their spouse at home or their kids at home, or maybe some client that they've had to deal with. And so you're dealing with conflict resolution in some cases. Or sometimes you're having differences of superiority and inferiority and judgments going on. Not just conflicts, but judgments and power struggles that go on when you're in that industry. Or health issues that are a result of that. And sometimes it's socially. There are people that they're afraid to do something in their business because they're afraid of the social impact, the fear of rejection, or breaking some sort of moral and ethical ideas of somebody that they've given power to, that's authority, spiritual or other. Or possibly they have a health issue that they're facing, not just psychological, but a health issue, and they're distracted by it, they're consumed by it, and they're doubting themselves. Almost anybody that's had a back that's gone out, a sore back or something like that, sometimes notice their confidence goes down. So when you're coaching and consulting and serving people, there are many different avenues that are coming around, even though you may be in a business coach or a life coach or a health coach. The other areas of life are also going to be superimposed on that, and they're going to relate to it. I've been consulting for people. I haven't called it coaching, but I've sort of coaching consulting for many years. And I've seen that whole spectrum. I've seen people literally in every one of the 7 areas of life: their spiritual quest, their intellectual development, their business, their finance, their family, their social, their physical health and well-being. All of them have had parameters that are involved when you're trying to help them break through limitations and achieve. So over the years, I've been working on how do we solve that? How do we help people break through those boundaries, the ceilings that they've got themselves in? And I put together tools to do that. And one of them is I call the Demartini Method. And I'd like to share with you how that might just be of help to you, and how it could be a help to you in your consulting service or business service or whatever service you're in. First of all, there are a number of principles on human behavior that I've been accumulating all these years that I've incorporated into this methodology. For instance, you know, the old saying, what you point your finger at, you got three fingers pointing back. That's a truism that I found sound over the years. And I found out that no matter what you see in other people, you've got. And that's hard to believe and hard for people to appreciate. Our addiction to being proud and right sometimes makes us not want to, face the truth reflectively of what we see around us, inside us. But we only resent things on the outside that represent parts of us we're ashamed of on the inside, that we're dodging and avoiding and dissociating from and putting on a facade of pride to cover it up. And they're reminding us of something we don't like. That's why we don't like them and resent them. And we put them down because we don't want them to remind us of that. And the same thing when we admire people. It's not that we don't have what we admire in them. We have it, but we're too humble to admit it. As long as we're too proud or too humble to admit what we see in others inside us, they're going to distract us. We've all had moments where we've been resentful to somebody and had difficulty sleeping at night, affecting our health and therefore our performance and productivity. Or we've been highly infatuated with somebody and again been distracted by impulses and couldn't get them out of our mind. Anything we infatuate or resent occupies space and time in our mind and runs us. Anything we balance, we get to manage and we're more governed. But if we have an imbalanced ratio perception and we're too proud or too humble to admit what we see in others inside us and we're judging them, we're not going to perform at our peak. So in the Demartini Method, I've developed a system of asking very accountable questions to help you reflect. Pure reflective awareness is liberating, but deflective awareness, where you're too proud or too humble to admit what you see in others inside you, where you deflect it, disown it, and dismember it, you don't remember that part of yourself and try to hide it, is disempowering. And you'll just keep repeating and keep recycling those events in your life that's related to that. You keep trying to avoid a certain type of person in your life, but they're actually there to give you an insight about what you're not loving in yourself, not appreciating in yourself. Everybody on the outside is actually a feedback guide you to love all those parts that they represent inside you. So giving yourself permission to look and reflect is very important. So in the method, I basically ask you, all right, what specific trait, action or inaction, do you perceive this individual displaying or demonstrating that you admire most or despise most? Again, this could be somebody who's a spouse or children. It could be some social friend or enemy. It could be somebody that's working in the company in a different department, or maybe some employer or some employer. It could be somebody who's a client, a vendor. I mean, it has many applications, socially, physically, etc. Could even be your health professional or your teacher, or maybe your spiritual guide or your counselor or whatever. Anybody you could have these emotions to. And unless you know how to own the traits of them, they're going to run you. Because anything you don't own inside yourself runs you until you do. So it's interesting as you go in there, what specific trait, action, or inaction do I perceive this individual displaying or demonstrating that I admire most or despise most? Either one of them can distract you. The two distractions are impulses towards and instincts away from people that we judge. Then you go and ask a really interesting question. Go to a moment where and when you perceive yourself displaying or demonstrating the same specific trait, action, or inaction that you admired or despised in them. Now, at first, you're going to be too proud to admit you do that. I don't do that. I pride myself on not doing that. Or I don't do it as much as them, and I'm too humble to admit it. But you have to go past the facade, the little imposter syndrome that you wear, and dig deep. And I've gone through this, and I've done it on thousands and thousands of people, and I assure you, what you see in others, you got. You're not missing anything. You're just too proud or too humble to admit it. So by going in there and actually neutralizing that and finding out where you've done that in your life, kind of helps you resolve some of the judgment you have on them, because who are you to judge them if you're doing the same thing? So that levels the playing field and takes the impulses and instincts out and puts the executive center functioning back in. And so now you're back on track with priority, and you're now more productive and more meaningful life, more fulfilling life. Otherwise, you're distracted by judgments that weigh you down gravitationally. So then on top of that, you could go even further. And by the way, I did a really interesting study 40 years ago. I went to the Oxford English Dictionary and I identified 4,628 traits that were identifiable in that dictionary. And then I went through each one and I wrote out to the side on the dictionary, who do I know that represents that trait to the fullest and most extreme example? And then I went inside myself and I owned it until I saw it to the degree of the most extreme individual. And I found I had every one of them. I was nice and mean and kind and cruel and positive, negative and up and down and, supportive and challenging and peaceful and wrathful and honest and dishonest. I had every one of the traits when I looked really truthfully at myself. And that was real eye-opening, because whatever you deny in yourself is something somebody's going to push a button about. And you'll be hooked. If you're in a relation, you'll keep being hooked by the same type of personality that hooks you, or resent certain people all the time. They keep reminding you of what you're just disowning. Any disowned part disempowers you. So if you're working with a client, this is very valuable to help them understand what they're judging in others and then themselves, and what they're actually deflecting. And then go and have them own it. Once they own it, it softens the judgments out. It's quite amazing how it happens. Just dissolves part of it away. And then if you can go even further and go, okay, once you see the trait you admire in somebody, and ask, Now go to a moment where you see that, you perceive that, and see them in that moment. And in that moment, what's the downside to it? Or if you're resenting them, what's the upside to it? And you ask counterbalancing question, what's the upside to what you think is down, and what's the down to what you think is up? And you balance it out. And you don't make anything up. You don't, just fake it. You look. And then you'll discover that there is no trait, action or inaction, that doesn't have two sides. You first admire somebody and you really think, wow, they're really intelligent. And then you find out, well, they like to be right. They're argumentative. They think they know everything. They don't listen very well. You find out the trait you admire also has traits you despise or aspects you dislike. And the trait you dislike, sometimes they're courageous enough to not be worried about what people think. And they're being integral and they're just saying it like it is. And you don't like that maybe. But then you can benefit from that because it frees you up to be integral in your life. So you'll find out that every trait has two sides, the things you like and dislike about it. And if you see one side and you have a subjective bias on it, and you meet somebody that's got that behavior, you're going to be run extrinsically by them and avoid them or seek them. And then for the world out there runs you instead of you run you. And so if you don't know how to balance it, so the Demartini Method is designed to help you balance your perceptions, own what you see in others, and allow you to not have the world on the outside run you, but you run you. If you're not taking command and living by design, you're living by duty. If you're not actually being inspired by your life, you're being distracted by desperations. And desperations, when you're infatuated with somebody and look up to them, you try to change yourself into being like them. If you resent them, you're trying to change them to be like you, both of which are futile. You can't be them, they can't be you. But you can be yourself. And the Demartini Method is designed to help you be yourself. The magnificence of who you are is far greater than any fantasies you'll put on yourself to change them or you relative to each other. So in coaching, this is very valuable because you're going to have conflicts. You're going to have discrepancies. You're going to have, in fact, I had a client recently that came to me who wanted some coaching consulting benefits, and they were having a fear. They were blocking themselves in their coaching outreach. And they knew that if they went out and did podcasts and they went out and did more talking, they could leverage themselves further, but they had a fear of speaking. Well, we narrowed it down and found out the fear of speaking, like one of the biggest fears in life, is the fear of speaking about something that you think somebody in the audience knows more about than you do. That's why Toastmasters starts it with the icebreaker, where you talk about your own life, where you talk about something you know more than they do. But if all of a sudden you think they know more than you and you're talking, then you're going to be inhibited and you're going to be hesitant about speaking. The fear of public speakers is not the fear of speaking, because you sometimes a blabbermouth one-on-one with friends, but at the same time, when you stand up, all of a sudden you're worried about what people think about you because you put them on a pedestal instead of put them in your heart. But what happens is the Demartini Method liberates that, levels the playing field. You own the traits of the greats that you're perceiving out there. You get to level the playing field, get to play on a new playing state, and all of a sudden have no fear of speaking. So I've seen people in business have intimidation on sales, intimidation on speaking, fear of what people's going to say. Their opinions are more important than their own. There's a whole lot of places where this stops people and plateaus people that the Demartini Method can help break you through. It also liberates you from health and stress responses. When you're doing something that if you're in a work that you're not inspired by and you haven't learned to delegate it and you're not prioritizing what you're doing and you're feeling frustrated and you're burning out or bored in some of your actions, and some clients may come to you with that, then the Demartini Method can help you dissolve the distractions and give yourself permission to delegate more things. Because sometimes you're only holding on to it because you think with your pride that you're the best one to do it and you know better than somebody else, and that pride's in your way. And you need to level that back out and give some other people the opportunity to take care of that so you're freed. I learned to delegate a long time ago, and I have no problem delegating. I'm a firm believer if you're not delegating, you're trapped. And so you're going to have clients that are trapped because they don't know how to level the playing field, liberate themselves from the judgments that I'm better than them and I know better than them, or I don't know enough, and they're holding themselves back. So this method is very valuable. Now you go to another step in the method where you actually take where you have done the very things that they've done, and you find then balance out the equation on that. So you dissolve the pride and shame. Because when you're proud, you're not yourself. And it's an imposter syndrome. When you're shamed, you're not yourself. When you're centered and you're authentic, you're yourself. And by the way, when you're in business, if you're cocky and proud, you tend to not listen to your customer. You think you know more than they do. You don't listen to your staff. You think you know more than them. You become an autocrat and you don't meet the customer's needs, and your business humbles you. And if you're altruistically minimizing yourself, sacrificing for others, trying to please everybody, then you'll have anarchy in the company, and you'll basically sacrifice your profits. So if you don't know how to bring yourself into authenticity and balance out the distractions and the infatuation, resentments, you're going to affect the business that way. And that's the same thing that's going to go on in relationships or social dynamics. A lot of times people are looking for a soulmate or a great mate in their life. But if they're arrogant, not meeting people's needs, it's non-sustainable. If they're minimizing, they don't want them. They want a match, somebody that gives them both praise and reprimand, that gives them a respect. And if you don't have your authenticity and you're not in equanimity in yourself, you won't have equity between other people, and you won't have sustainable fair exchange. So the method is used also to balance out the pride and shame, balance out the infatuation, resentments, all the things that occupy space and time in your mind and distract you from being present and purposeful and poised and powerful and productive and prioritized. You also have sometimes labels you put on people, and they trap you. You think, well, all these type of people, they're always that way. You see them, their subjective biases and prejudices that we have that undermine opportunities in our life. And so this also, there's a section in the method that's basically going and finding out whatever you judge in somebody, where do they have the opposite side, and balance the equation. So in other words, whatever is this trait you admire or despise, go to a moment where they have the opposite, where they display the exact opposite to the same people they display it to. And then you find out that these people are just people with a set of values, but you've falsely labeled them with some sort of bias. And as a result of it, you've generalized and distorted your reality with subjective bias, which puts you in a survival mode, not a thrival position. So this is also undermining your power in life. So we go in through there in the method, and we neutralize that. We stop labeling people, because a lot of times people, it's like somebody coming up to you and said to me and said, well, you a Stoic, or are you a Buddhist, or you are this. I'm not any of those. I don't fit in that little category. I'm a student of life and studied many different fields. And so people want to pigeonhole you. And so the method helps you dissolve the pigeonholes that you project and you are put into, helps you neutralize those so you're not distracted. A lot of these things undermine businesses and relationships, health. They undermine your dynamic with your family and your social life, and even your spiritual understanding, because we get boxed into this in-group, out-group bias because we exaggerate or minimize people or ourselves. So this tool has a main application in all areas of life. I've found over 1,000 applications and how they can be used for coaches and consultants and people in the health field, particularly. Health professionals use it in their client base to deal with reducing the distress levels and stress levels they're having, so they can get on with doing something that's meaningful. And there's also an application where you actually find the synchronicities of opposites, as Carl Jung described and Wolfgang Pauli described in their Atom and the Mind. They showed that there's a synchronicities going on. So I had a client that was in South Africa that was being challenged in the media, and we found out who is supporting him at the same time they were challenging him, who is the praisers to balance the reprimanders, and we brought it into balance with this particular question in the method. And all of a sudden, they were no longer fearful or anxious about the criticism. They realized you never get criticism without praise. You never get one without the other. They come as a pair, like a magnet. If you try to chop the magnet and get a positive pole or a negative pole isolated, you can't do it. But praise and reprimand are always there together, and we need both in order to maximize our growth. If we get overpraised, we puff ourselves up and get false. And over criticized, we beat ourselves up and get shamed. If we basically put ourselves and see both of them at the same time, we come into authenticity. So there's a tool in the method, and a question in the method helps you see both sides simultaneously. Wilhelm Wundt, 1897, in his book on Principles of Psychology, talked about simultaneous contrasts liberate people. So in the method, I show people how to liberate themselves and free themselves up so they're not in bondage to misinterpretations or worry about what people think about them. If you get around praise and you don't have reprimand, you'll get elated, and you'll start losing contact with who you are. You'll get cocky, and then you'll think you're invincible, and then you get humbled by tragic situations. And if you get put down, people support you and try to lift you up. In fact, all your physiology, psychology, and sociology is a feedback system to try to get you authentic. If you get cocky, there's criticism and challenge. If you get humble, there's praise and support. Nature is always trying to get you back into authenticity. So the method helps you govern yourself before the world around you has to. Because if you're governed from the outside, you're a follower. If you're governed from within, you're a leader. And then you also have these fantasies that we run our lives by. We've inculcated and injected the values of moralities and traditions and conventions that are moral hypocrisies in many cases. Your grandmother says you're supposed to be nice, never mean, kind, never cruel, positive, never negative, happy, never sad, and always one-sided things that no human being can have. We have a hedonic treadmill and a hedonic adaptation in our brain to make sure we have a set point that keeps us in stability. And the second we think we're going to get a one-sided world, it's not going to happen. So some people think they're going to do that. So the method has a way of cracking the delusions, the fantasies that you hold on to, and the nightmares, the wounds in your life that are affecting your decisions. As long as you got wounds of the past and fantasies of the future running your dynamic, you're not going to be present in the now, and you're not going to be empowered. So the Demartini Method helps you integrate those and neutralize the fantasies. Because if you have this fantasy, you're always supposed to be nice all the time. If you're not, you're going to feel guilty, and then you're impostered again. And if you think you are, then you're going to be proud and again impostered. Pride and shame aren't the real you. The authentic you is with tears of gratitude and appreciation and really centered. The false you are the imposter syndrome. And most people live with that. And the Demartini Method helps you dissolve those and helps you come present. And the magnificence of who you really are, the authentic you, is way more powerful than any of those vicissitudes and instabilities that you impose and all those misinterpretations and biases and prejudices that you put on people. So there's no reason why you can't learn that tool. It's something that's trainable, it's transferable, it's translatable. I've taught it in many, many countries around the world. Thousands of people are using it. It's a tool that can be useful for you. And this is one of the things that I teach in the breakthrough experience. One of the reasons I do the breakthrough experience is I want people to know that tool, because that tool is gold. It's a very powerful tool, and it's accountable, and it's a reproducible tool. It's a science. It's reproducible. You can guarantee a result if you follow it to the letter. So that's why I tell people, come to the breakthrough experience and learn that tool. Or some people, when they come to the breakthrough, they decide to even go to a further training on it and learn all the amplifications and applications that you can use that tool for. We found literally 1,000 applications for people in the coaching industry or any industry of service where it can be applied. And it's a very powerful tool. It's one of the, I'm certain if you learn it, it'll be one of the most valuable tools you'll have in your toolkit of making a difference in people's lives and in your own. You can't help other people get what they want to get in life without you helping yourself do the same. So by learning the tool for yourself and other people, it'll be a valuable tool. So come to the breakthrough experience. Let me share and introduce you to it. And then once you got the tool, I assure you, you won't put it away. It's going to be with you. You're going to use it over and over again in applications with clients or yourself or the people you love at home, etc. So I just wanted to talk a little about this tool as it applies to your coaching or consulting or healthcare practicing, or maybe just working and interacting socially with people. Whether you're a business leader or a business manager or somebody working in a business, it'll apply. And in your social life, I assure you it will apply. So if you want to master that and master more of your life, come to the breakthrough experience. Let me share with you this tool and take advantage of this tool and its opportunity to impact other people, particularly if you're a coach.